The rain-slicked streets of Gangnam glittered under neon signs as Diane Thompson pedaled her delivery bike through the late-night drizzle. Seoul never truly slept, but at 1 a.m., the crowds thinned to stragglers and the occasional luxury car slicing past. Her insulated bag thumped against her back, the final order of the shift, a discreet black package from a high-end restaurant in Cheongdam-dong, address listed as a private entrance behind Eclipse, the city's most exclusive nightclub. She wiped sweat from her brow, curls escaping her helmet despite the tie. 4 years in Korea, and she still felt the stares sometimes. Curious, appraising, occasionally hostile, but hunger and rent waited for no one. She locked her bike outside the unmarked door, buzzed the intercom, and waited. The door clicked open without a word. A tall man in a dark suit appeared, expression blank. "Package?" Diane handed it over. "Signature required." He didn't move. Instead, he stepped aside. "Inside." Her instincts screamed no, but the app paid double for verified delivery, and she needed the cash. She followed him down a dimly lit corridor that opened into a hidden lounge. Low black leather sofas, crystal chandeliers casting fractured light, the faint thump of bass from the main club above. The air smelled of expensive cologne and cigar smoke. At the far end, behind a massive desk of polished ebony, sat Lee Hyuk. He didn't look up immediately. Long fingers turned a glass of whiskey, ice clinking softly. When he did, his gaze locked on her. Dark, unreadable, piercing straight through the practical delivery jacket and rain-dampened pants. He was taller than she'd expected, even seated, broad shoulders filling the tailored black suit like it was armor. A faint scar traced the edge of his jaw, barely visible under the low light. "You're not the usual rider," he said, voice low and smooth, carrying the effortless authority of someone who never needed to raise it. "App assigns whoever's closest." Diane kept her tone even, refusing to shrink. "Sign here, and I'm gone." He rose slowly, unfolding to his full height. The room seemed to shrink. He crossed the space in measured steps, stopping close enough that she caught the subtle scent of cologne and power. He took the tablet from her hand, but instead of signing, he studied her face. "You delivered to the wrong entrance," he murmured. "This package wasn't meant for public eyes." Her pulse kicked. "Then your instructions suck. Blame the restaurant, not me." A ghost of amusement flickered in his eyes, gone in an instant. He set the tablet aside, untouched. "Bold for someone standing in my domain." Diane lifted her chin. "I'm just doing my job. You want to play gatekeeper? Fine. But I'm not here for your games." He tilted his head, assessing. Most people tremble when they realize where they are. "Do I look like most people?" For the first time, something real sparked in his gaze. Interest, sharp and dangerous. He stepped even closer, close enough that she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. The air between them thickened, charged. "No," he said softly. "You don't." He finally signed, but instead of handing the tablet back, he slipped a black card into her palm. No name, just a number embossed in silver. "Next time there's a mix-up," he said, "call this, directly." Diane pocketed it without looking. "There won't be a next time." His lips curved, not quite a smile. "We'll see." She turned on her heel, heart hammering, and walked out without another word. Behind her, she felt his stare like heat on her skin long after the door closed. The black card burned a hole in Diane's pocket for 3 days. She tried to ignore it, tossed it into the drawer beside her tiny Hongdae studio apartment, buried it under takeout receipts and spare change. but every late-night delivery through Seoul's rain-slick alleys made her fingers brush the embossed silver number. She told herself it was nothing. A rich man's ego. A power play. Then the package came again. Same restaurant. Same discreet black envelope. Same address. Eclipse's private entrance. This time the app note read, "Special instructions. Deliver to Mr. Lee personally. No substitutions." Diane cursed under her breath. She could refuse, take the hit to her rating. But the payout was triple, and her landlord had already left 2 voicemails about rent. She strapped the bag to her bike and rode. The same suited man opened the door, but his eyes flicked over her with new recognition. No words, just a nod. He led her deeper this time, past the lounge, down a corridor lined with frosted glass, until they reached a private office that smelled of leather and cedar. Lee Hyuk stood at the floor-to-ceiling window overlooking Gangnam's glittering skyline. Hands in pockets, suit jacket discarded over a chair, sleeves rolled to reveal the edge of dark ink curling around his forearm. He didn't turn immediately. "You came," he said, voice carrying that same quiet command. Money talks louder than pride. Diane set the package on the desk with deliberate care. "Sign. I'm out in 30 seconds." He finally faced her. The city lights carved sharp shadows across his face, making his eyes seem even darker. "You kept the card. Didn't throw it away. Big difference." A faint smirk tugged at his mouth. He crossed the room in 3 strides, stopping just inside her personal space. Close enough that she could see the faint pulse at the base of his throat, the way his chest rose and fell with measured control. "You're not afraid," he observed. "Should I be?" "Most are." He reached past her, deliberately slow, picked up the package, then set it aside without opening it. His arm brushed hers, a deliberate graze that sent heat skittering across her skin. "You should be." Diane didn't step back. "Threats don't pay my bills." He studied her like she was a puzzle he intended to solve piece by piece. Then he leaned in, voice dropping to a murmur that vibrated between them. "What does pay them?" "Getting out of here with my dignity intact." For a heartbeat, neither moved. The air thickened, heavy with unspoken challenge. His gaze dropped to her lips, then back to her eyes, possessive, assessing, hungry in a way that made her stomach tighten. "You intrigue me, Diane Thompson." She lifted her chin. "You don't get to use my name like you know me." "I will." Simple, certain, the promise wrapped in velvet menace. He finally took the tablet, signed with a flourish, but when she reached for it, his fingers closed lightly around her wrist, not hard, just enough to hold her still. His thumb brushed the inside of her pulse point, slow and deliberate. "Next time," he said softly. "Don't make me wait 3 days." She yanked free, heart slamming against her ribs. "There won't be a next time." His eyes darkened with something dangerous and amused. "You keep saying that." Diane turned and walked out, legs steady even though every nerve screamed. The door clicked shut behind her, but she could still feel the weight of his stare, the ghost of his touch lingering like a brand. She didn't look at the card again that night, but she didn't throw it away either. The next delivery came 2 nights later, but this time the app pinged with an address Diane didn't recognize. A quiet residential street in Songbuk-dong, far from the neon pulse of Gangnam. No restaurant name, just private pickup, cash tip promised. She almost declined. Almost. But the payout flashed triple again, and curiosity, damn it, won. She rode through the winding uphill roads, past gated hanoks and modern villas, until she reached a sleek black gate flanked by discreet security cameras. It slid open before she could buzz. A different man waited this time, older, scarred knuckles, polite but watchful. He led her through a minimalist courtyard garden, koi pond reflecting moonlight, and into a private residence that smelled faintly of pine and incense. Lee Hyuk stood in the open-plan living room, back to her, staring out at the city lights below the hill. No suit tonight, just a black cashmere sweater that clung to his shoulders and dark trousers. The casualness only made him more dangerous. "You're following me now?" Diane asked, setting the small, unmarked box on the low table. Her voice came out sharper than intended. He turned slowly. "You accepted the job." "Because it pays, not because I wanted to play hide-and-seek with a mafia boss." His gaze swept over her, rain-damp jacket, helmet hair escaping in rebellious curls, defiant stance. Something flickered in his expression, not amusement this time. Hunger, restrained. "I don't play games, Diane." He stepped closer. "I protect what's mine." "I'm not yours." "Not yet." The words landed soft, certain, like a vow. She laughed, short and incredulous. "You think one signature and a wrist grab makes me property?" He closed the distance until only a breath separated them. Up close, she could see the tension in his jaw, the way his pupils dilated in the low light. He reached out, slow enough she could stop him, and brushed a stray curl from her cheek. His fingers lingered, warm against her skin. "You keep coming back," he murmured, "even when you say you won't. Because you keep making it impossible to say no." Her voice dropped, betraying the tremor she hated. "Stop sending packages. Stop watching me ride past your club at 2 a.m. Stop this." His thumb traced the line of her jaw, feather light. "I can't." The air crackled. She should push him away. Instead, her hand rose, almost against her will, and pressed flat against his chest. Solid heat, steady heartbeat that betrayed nothing of the calm exterior. "Then what do you want?" she whispered. His eyes darkened. "Everything." For a long moment, neither moved. Then he leaned in, forehead resting against hers, breath mingling. No kiss, not yet. Just the electric promise of one, suspended between them like a held breath. "You're in my world now," he said quietly, "and I don't let go easily." Diane swallowed. "I don't belong in your world." "You already do." His hand slid to the nape of her neck, possessive but gentle. "Question is, will you fight it, or let me show you how good it can feel to stop running?" She pulled back just enough to meet his gaze, heart thundering. "I don't run from anyone." A slow, dangerous smile curved his lips. "Good." He released her, stepped back. The space between them felt colder than the rain outside. "Sign the tablet," she said, voice steadier than she felt. He did, but when she turned to leave, his voice followed her to the door. "Next time, Diane, don't come as a delivery girl. Come as yourself." She didn't answer, didn't look back, but as the gate closed behind her bike, she knew he was already watching. And worse, she wasn't sure she minded. The call came at midnight, ruining the peace of Diane's apartment. Unknown number. She almost ignored it, then remembered the black card still tucked in her wallet like a guilty secret. She answered. "Diane?" Lee Hyuk's voice rolled through the line, calm but edged with something urgent. "Don't move. Stay inside. Lock the door." Her pulse spiked. What the hell is going on? "Rivals. They know about the deliveries. They know your face." Then softer, almost reluctant. "They're coming for leverage." She moved to the window, peering through the blinds at the Hongdae street below. 2 black sedans idled at the curb, headlights off. Men in dark coats stepped out, scanning the building. "You're kidding me," she breathed. "I'm sending someone. 5 minutes. Don't open the door for anyone else." "I can handle myself." "Not against them." His tone sharpened. Command, not request. "Stay put. That's an order." She bristled even as fear coiled in her gut. "I don't take orders from you." "You will tonight." The line clicked dead. Minutes stretched like hours. She grabbed her bike helmet, pathetic weapon, and waited. A sharp knock came, not the polite buzz, heavy, insistent. "Diane Thompson," a voice called in accented English. "Open up. We just want to talk." She backed toward the kitchen, heart hammering. Then the door exploded inward. 2 men burst through, masked, gloved. One lunged. She swung the helmet, connecting with a sickening crack. He staggered. The second grabbed her arm, twisting hard. Pain flared. A gunshot cracked outside. Shouts. Chaos. The grip on her arm vanished. The man crumpled, blood blooming on his shoulder. Lee Hyuk stepped through the shattered doorway like a storm made flesh, black coat swirling, pistol steady in his hand. His eyes found hers instantly, wild with something raw and possessive. He didn't speak. Just crossed the room in 3 strides, yanked her against him, one arm banding around her waist like iron. His free hand cupped the back of her head, pressing her face to his chest. She could feel his heartbeat, fast, furious, beneath the cashmere. "You're safe," he murmured against her hair. The words vibrated through her. She shoved at him, but her hands fisted in his coat instead. "You could have warned me sooner." "I did." He pulled back just enough to look at her, eyes scanning for injury, thumb brushing a smear of blood on her cheek that wasn't hers. "You didn't listen. You don't get to decide what I do." His gaze darkened. "Tonight I do." He didn't wait for argument, scooped her up, effortless, possessive, and carried her past the wreckage, down the stairs, through the knot of his men securing the scene. Outside, a sleek black SUV waited, engine running. He slid into the back seat with her still in his arms, pulling the door shut. The car peeled away. Inside the dim cabin, silence pressed heavy. She straddled his lap now, unintentional, inevitable, his hands firm on her hips, keeping her close. Neither moved to separate. "You could have died," he said quietly, voice rough. "So could you." His forehead dropped to hers, breath mingled. The city lights streaked past the tinted windows, but the world narrowed to the heat between them. "I won't lose you," he whispered, "not to anyone." Diane's fingers threaded into his hair, tugging just enough to make him look at her. "Stop treating me like something you own." His grip tightened fractionally, then gentled. "I'm trying." She searched his eyes, saw the crack in the armor, fear, not just control. Slowly, deliberately, she leaned in. Their lips brushed, once, feather light, a promise, a challenge. No deeper, not yet. But when she pulled back, his gaze burned. "Take me somewhere safe," she said. He nodded once. "My place. No more running." The car merged into Seoul's night traffic, carrying them deeper into shadows neither could escape. The SUV glided through Seoul's pre-dawn hush, headlights cutting pale paths across empty streets. Diane stayed in Lee Hyuk's lap, the tension between them a live wire. His hands still firm on her hips, hers resting against his chest, like she couldn't decide whether to push away or pull closer. Neither spoke. The silence felt heavier than words ever could. His penthouse occupied the top floor of a glass tower in Cheongdam-dong, all clean lines and midnight views. When the elevator opened directly into the living space, he carried her inside without setting her down. Only then did he lower her to her feet beside a low obsidian table. But he didn't step back. The city sprawled below them like scattered diamonds. "You're shaking," he said quietly. "Adrenaline?" She crossed her arms, trying to reclaim space. "Not fear." He studied her, rain-streaked jacket, bruised wrist already purpling, defiant eyes. Something raw flickered across his face. He shrugged off his coat, draped it over her shoulders. The fabric carried his warmth, his scent. Bathrooms down the hall. Shower. Change. He nodded toward a guest room door. "Clothes in the closet." "I'm not staying." "You are." No room for argument. "Until I know they're handled." She opened her mouth to protest, then closed it. The shattered door of her apartment flashed in her mind. She turned without a word and disappeared down the corridor. When she emerged 20 minutes later, hair damp, wearing one of his oversized black shirts that hit mid-thigh like a dress, he waited on the leather sectional, sleeves rolled, a fresh glass of whiskey in hand. He'd poured a second. She took it, sank onto the opposite end of the couch. Distance. Control. He watched her sip. "You fought them." "Had to." "You shouldn't have had to." His voice dropped, edged with something close to regret. "This is my fault." Diane met his gaze. "Then fix it. Stop dragging me into your mess." "I can't undo what's already started." He set his glass down, leaned forward, elbows on knees. "But I can end it. For you." She laughed softly, bitter. "You think you can just decide my safety?" "I already did the moment I let you walk out of Eclipse that first night." He rose, crossed to her side of the couch in one fluid motion, knelt in front of her so their eyes were level. "I should have sent you away. I didn't." His hand lifted, slow, giving her time to pull back. She didn't. Fingers traced the curve of her cheek, then slid into her still damp curls. "You scare me," he admitted, voice barely above a whisper. "Because I've never wanted anything I couldn't control. Until you." Diane's breath caught. She reached up, covered his hand with hers, holding it there instead of pushing it away. "Then stop trying to control me," she said. His thumb brushed her lower lip. The touch was electric, reverent. He leaned in until their foreheads touched again, breaths tangling. "I'm learning," he murmured. Slowly. She closed the last inch. Their lips met, soft at first, testing, then deeper. His hand cupped the back of her neck, possessive but careful, angling her exactly where he wanted while letting her set the pace. Heat bloomed low in her belly. She shifted closer, knees bracketing his waist as he rose to meet her on the couch. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, his eyes were dark fire. "Stay tonight," he said. Not an order, a plea. Diane searched his face, saw the man beneath the boss, the one who'd bled for her tonight. She nodded once. He pulled her against him, arms wrapping tight. No more words, just the steady rhythm of his heartbeat against hers, the city lights flickering like distant stars, and the quiet promise that whatever came next, they'd face it together. For the first time, the power didn't feel one-sided. The morning light filtered through the penthouse blinds in soft gold stripes, painting Lee Hyuk's bare back where he stood at the kitchen island. Diane watched from the doorway of the guest room, still wrapped in his oversized shirt, bare legs and tousled curls giving her an air of vulnerability she hadn't felt in years. He didn't turn immediately, so poured coffee into 2 black mugs with the same deliberate calm he used to handle a gun. He leaned against the counter, arms crossed, studying her like she might vanish if he blinked. My men swept your building. The threat's contained, for now. But they'll try again. You're a loose end they can't ignore. Diane took a slow sip. The coffee was strong, bitter, perfect. So what's the plan? Keep me locked in your tower like some modern-day Rapunzel? His lips twitched. Tempting, but no. He straightened. You're not a prisoner. You're leverage I refuse to lose. She set the mug down harder than necessary. Stop talking about me like I'm an asset on your balance sheet. He closed the distance in one step, caging her gently against the island without touching her. Close enough that she felt the heat radiating from his bare chest. Then tell me what you are, he murmured, because every time I try to define it, you rewrite the rules. Diane lifted her chin. I'm the woman who's going to walk out that door unless you start treating me like a partner, not a problem to solve. Something shifted in his eyes, surprise, then slow respect. He exhaled, stepped back half a pace, gave her space, a concession. I've spent years building walls so no one could touch what matters, he said quietly. You walked through them without knocking. That terrifies me more than any rival. She searched his face, saw the truth there, raw and unguarded. Then stop hiding behind them, she said. Let me in, or let me go. He reached for her hand, turned it palm up, traced the faint bruise on her wrist with his thumb. Gentle, reverent. I don't know how to do this, he admitted, but I'm willing to learn, if you stay. Diane curled her fingers around his. I'm not asking for forever, just equal ground. He nodded once, pulled her closer until their bodies aligned, slow, deliberate. His free hand slid to her waist, anchoring her. She rose on her toes, brushed her lips against the corner of his jaw. Not a kiss, a claim. His breath hitched. You're dangerous, Diane Thompson. Says the man who runs the underworld. A low laugh rumbled in his chest. He dipped his head, captured her mouth in a kiss that started soft and turned searing, hands roaming, bodies pressing, the island forgotten. When they broke apart, both breathing unevenly, he rested his forehead against hers. No more deliveries, he said. No more running alone at night. She smiled against his lips. Only if you promise no more surprise packages. Deal. Outside, Seoul woke to another day. Traffic humming, neon signs dimming. Inside, two worlds finally began to overlap, not in conquest, but in careful, hard-won trust. The days blurred into a strange new rhythm inside Lee Hyuk's penthouse. Diane refused to become a kept woman. She still rode out during daylight hours, fewer shifts, chosen routes, always with one of his discreet black cars trailing at a distance she pretended not to notice. He hated it. She knew he did. Every time she returned, he met her at the elevator with that same tight-jawed look, hands in pockets to keep from reaching for her too soon. Tonight she came back later than usual, hair wind-tangled, cheeks flushed from the autumn chill sweeping through Hongdae. He was waiting in the living room, sleeves rolled, a tablet forgotten on the coffee table. The city lights painted shifting patterns across his face. You're late, he said, quiet, controlled. Traffic. She kicked off her sneakers, padded barefoot across the heated floor. And I stopped for tteokbokki, wanted something normal. His gaze tracked her every movement. Normal doesn't exist here anymore. She stopped in front of him, close enough to feel the tension coiling in his frame. It does if I make it. He exhaled through his nose, then reached out, slow, deliberate, and caught the hem of her jacket, tugging her forward until their bodies brushed. You push every boundary I have. Good. She tilted her head up. You need it. His hand slid to her waist, fingers splaying possessively. I could lock the doors, keep you here. Safe. You could try. Her voice dropped, teasing the edge of challenge. See how long that lasts. Something dark and hungry flashed in his eyes. He backed her slowly against the floor-to-ceiling window, cool glass pressing through her thin shirt. Soul glittered indifferent below them. His other hand cupped her jaw, thumb tracing her lower lip. You think I won't? He murmured. I think you want me to choose this. She hooked a finger in his belt loop, pulling him flush against her. Not be forced into it. His breath caught. For once, the man who commanded rooms and lives hesitated. Diane rose on her toes, brushed her mouth against his, once, twice, soft invitations. When he finally kissed her back, it was slow, devastating, deep enough to make her knees weaken. His hands roamed, down her sides, under the hem of her shirt, palms warm against bare skin. She arched into the touch, fingers threading into his hair, tugging just hard enough to draw a low sound from his throat. He broke away first, forehead pressed to hers, breathing ragged. Tell me to stop. She shook her head. Don't. He lifted her effortlessly, legs wrapping around his waist as he carried her to the sectional. They sank together, her straddling him, his hands gripping her thighs like anchors. Clothes stayed on, but the heat between them burned through every layer. Slow rolls of hips, whispered names against skin, the drag of lips along collarbones. Every touch deliberate, reverent, building tension without rushing to release. When they finally stilled, tangled and breathless, he buried his face in the curve of her neck. I'm not good at this, he confessed against her pulse. Letting someone matter this much. Diane stroked his hair, feeling the rapid beat of his heart match hers. You're doing fine. He lifted his head, eyes searching hers. Stay. Not because I demand it, because you want to. She smiled, small, real. I already am. Outside, the city pulsed on. Inside, the balance had shifted again, not toward surrender, but toward something fiercer, partnership forged in fire. The betrayal came without warning. Diane had started venturing out more freely, coffee runs in Samcheongdong, quiet walks along the Han River at dusk, always with one of Hyuk's men shadowing at a respectful distance. She'd convinced herself the danger had faded. Hyuk had convinced himself the same, until the night she returned to the penthouse earlier than expected. The elevator doors opened to silence that felt wrong, too thick, too still. Lights dimmed low. No Hyuk waiting at the island with coffee or quiet questions. Instead, she found him in the study, standing rigid before the wall of monitors that usually showed club feeds and security grids. One screen flickered with grainy footage, a back alley behind a clips. Two figures in hoods exchanging a small drive. One pulled back his hood, just enough for the camera to catch his face. Min Jae. Hyuk's second in command for 6 years. The man who'd carried her out of her ruined apartment, who'd nodded respectfully every time she passed. Hyuk didn't turn when she stepped inside. His voice came flat, lethal. He sold the intel. Names, Roots, your face, everything. Diane's stomach dropped. How long? Long enough to know the last attack wasn't random. He finally faced her, eyes cold fire, jaw locked so tight a muscle ticked. He took payment to deliver you. Thought he could trade you for a bigger seat at someone else's table. She crossed the room, stopped inches from him. And? I handled it. Simple. Final. The kind of final that left no body to find. Diane searched his face, saw the cost there. Not regret, but exhaustion. The weight of another betrayal carved deeper lines around his mouth. You didn't tell me, she said. I didn't want you to see this part. He exhaled, shoulders dropping fractionally. The part where I become the monster again. She reached up, cupped his face, thumbs brushing the sharp line of his cheekbones. You think I don't already know? His hand settled on her waist, hesitant, like he expected her to pull away. She didn't. I took care of him tonight, he said. For you. No, she shook her head. You did it because he crossed a line you can't forgive, but you did it tonight because you're terrified of what happens if they get me. He closed his eyes briefly. When they opened again, the armor had cracked wide. I am. Diane stepped into him, arms sliding around his neck. He buried his face against her shoulder, inhaling like she was oxygen after drowning. His grip tightened, desperate, possessive, but no longer controlling. She pulled back just enough to meet his gaze. You're not doing this alone anymore. Diane. No. She pressed a finger to his lips. You protect me. I protect you. That's the deal now. He studied her, long, searching, then nodded once. Slow, real. She kissed him then, hard, claiming. He responded like a man finally allowed to fall, hands roaming her back, lifting her against him until her legs wrapped his waist. They stumbled toward the bedroom, shedding jackets, shirts, restraint. Skin met skin in a rush of heat and need. Slow drags of lips, whispered promises against throats, bodies moving together in perfect, fierce rhythm. When they collapsed afterward, tangled in sheets and city light, he pulled her close, chin resting atop her head. I'm done hiding the worst parts, he said. Good. She traced the tattoo curling over his collarbone. Because I'm not leaving. Outside, Soul glittered on, indifferent, endless. Inside, the last wall between them finally crumbled.